because it kind of ties into what I want to talk about with you guys tonight. And so I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. I was born in the Netherlands, in Holland. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I lived for 30 years. And we grew up with very little. In fact, I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I lied about my age and got a job at Burger King and was able to buy my own clothes. And, we ate expired food, drank powdered milk, because again, that's all we could afford. And I'm sure maybe some of you had it harder than we did, or maybe, with this COVID nonsense, they're really struggling right now. But, back then I always knew I wanted more. And luckily my mom was a bit of an entrepreneur and she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she bought the house across the street from us for $30,000 when I was about 14. And when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate, Mom. I'm going to be rich in real estate. So I thought I was going to be rich selling other people's houses. I got my real estate broker's license. Believe it or not, I was actually a broker when I turned 18. You could do that back then with education. Now they got smart and you actually need some experience. But I was a real estate broker. I could own my own office right when I turned 18. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe about $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000. And back, in 1981, that was a decent chunk of change. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 for me to effectively 10x my income? And that's one of the things I want to talk to you guys about tonight. What happened was I met somebody that taught me the importance of the psychology of success and mindset, and how really your success in anything, 80 to 90% of it is your mindset and your psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the vehicle, be it multifamily, entrepreneurship, or whatever it is. It's really the ability to take action with what you learn. If it was just the knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. It's the do and it's the keep doing. And so fast forward to today, I've owned 2,000 houses that are rented long-term, multiple apartment complexes. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you're thinking, wow, that's impressive. Well, there's a punchline. And of course, I got a big head. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. If you want to do the math on that, it's about $8,300 an hour, which of course I did. And I thought I could do no wrong. I could barely fit my head through a door. Well, when that happens, God or the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 for me. I lost that 17 million and a lot more. I actually lost $50 million in 2008. And so one of the things I enjoy talking about, and we can dig into why that happened too, because you guys are all knowledgeable, so I'm happy to give you the explanation on that. But why that happened, what I like to talk about is the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place, and the mindset it took to get back to the success that we enjoy today. We bought over 1,400 units with our students in the last 18 months, and and I'm back. But so if you'll humor me, I'd like to talk about that for a minute. And one of the things that we do at my what used to be my live events, now my live stream events, is we do a goal setting workshop. But what I'd like to do is just kind of give you a high level overview of it. Just take 5-10 minutes and explain it to you, because it's very, very powerful. Now, I know if you're on this call, you do your goals, but humor me, because I think if you go through this process, you'll see that it's much more powerful than just writing your goals down. So you may want to take a couple of notes. I think you'll be glad you did if you do. But what you want to do is you want to pick an hour when you have a lot of energy, so you don't do it after a meal, and make sure you're hydrated, and write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. All the stuff, okay? Write down all the stuff, the houses, the cars, the boats, the jet skis, the planes, the jewelry, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with stuff. Write that down. Also write down, maybe where you want to travel. I've got a travel vision board right behind my desk here. Maybe write down the things you want to do in your lifetime, like, write a book or climb all the mountains over 14,000 feet, or jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I did that about 8 months ago. I'll never freaking do it again, but it's off the list. So write down what you want to do in your lifetime and all the things. I mean, not just in the next year, everything you want to do in this lifetime. Also write down who you want to or write down what you want to learn in this lifetime. Maybe you want to learn a foreign language. You're here to learn multifamily. I'll tell you how if you want to join me, I've got a boot camp coming up here in a couple of weeks, and I get you in there for under $100. And I don't sell anything there, by the way. I don't sell anything, 16 hours of total training, but I'll tell you how to do that later. But the point is, write down what you want to learn. Maybe there's another skill set you want to learn. So write that down. And then also write down who you want to help. Okay. Like my parents, when my dad was alive, I bought him a house here in Florida, took him on cruises, bought him a car. Who do you want to do something for? Because we'll do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And guys, what we're doing here is we're creating the fuel. Again, this is the fuel. Now, you're sitting here thinking, okay, shit, I came here to learn about multifamily. Get on with the multifamily. Well, respectfully, what I'm going to share with you now, trust me, is 10 times more important than the multifamily that I'll talk about once I'm done with this section. But I'm telling you, this is what makes the difference. It's not the technical knowledge. It's a lot of us have limiting beliefs. We've got fears. We've got, or we're comfortable. That's even worse. And the comfort zone's a warm place, but nothing freaking grows there. So it's important for you to have this fuel. So you've written down all the things you want in this lifetime. Write down how much money you want in cash flow from your real estate endeavors, say in 3 years, and then again in 10 years. Alan, you're not muted, buddy. Write down what you want to learn, how much money you want to make, how much money you want in the bank, say in 3 years, and in a safety account, safe account in 3 years and maybe in 10 years. So the money too, but everything you want to do, be, or have. And guys, take the lid off your brain. This is really important, because just by writing something down, even something big like a jet or a yacht or a private island, what it does is it triggers something in your brain called your reticular activating system. And that's that filter in your brain that subconsciously filters out what it thinks is important to you to focus on. And it's subconscious, it's not conscious. And the greatest example of it is when you first buy a vehicle. You don't really notice them before then, and you buy it and you see them everywhere. Were they there before? Of course they were. And that's your reticular activating system. So again, don't limit yourself. You're only limited by what's between your ears, guys. So take the lid off your brain, and if you can imagine it, write it down. All right. Once you can't think of another thing, it's not real until it's measurable. So the next step is you've got to put how many years it's going to take you to achieve it. So put a 1, a 3, a 5, a 10, even a 20. As human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, 20 years. I'll give you a personal example. And I'm going to give you some personal examples. Please know I'm not bragging. My only intent here is to inspire you, okay? But 20 years ago, when I or back when I lived in Denver, I always knew that I wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver. And so, I would visualize the palm trees and the waves and the sand and the surf and all of that. And 20 years later, I built this incredible mansion on the beach here in Sarasota. It was, 10,000 square foot, $8 million home. Spectacular. I mean, just spectacular home, which was unthinkable when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. But so my point here in this, take the lid off your brain. If you want it, write it down, because you absolutely can get it. So once you've got a time limit on each goal, it's just a couple more steps, and then I'll land the plane on this. So you want to pick your number one goal. I mean, that goal, when you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, that goal. Put that on another piece of paper. Then I want you to pick your top 3 one-year goals. Put those on another piece of paper. So you've got 4 goals, and leave some room between them. At this point, you're ahead of 99.9% of the people on the planet, but we're going to take it just a little further. The goals are really important. But what's even more important is knowing why they're an absolute freaking must to achieve. And so you're going to write down why they're an absolute must. Okay. You're going to say things like, and use emotionally charged words. Words are very powerful. You want to utilize them. Words like amazing and beautiful and incredible and wonderful. Use them. Okay. Because they'll juice you and they'll move you so that, I can show my kids what amazing success looks like. So I can show my husband, wife, what it means to live the life we've always dreamed of. So we can have the freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, go wherever we want.
Okay, then put the shade up, Charlie. You know what to do. You don't have to whine for me to do it.
Rob, you're killing me, bro.
Sorry.
Got him. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, so I could. And I was going so well too. So I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. Anyway, make it emotional, guys, because it will move you, it'll drive you. It's much more powerful than the goals. So once you've written a positive reason why it's an absolute must. I want you to take it just one step further, put some pain in there. And here's why. As human beings, we'll do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And you want to use this, okay? This is the fuel. So you want to say, if you don't get the goal, so I don't feel like a failure, so I don't live a life of regret, so I don't fail my kids, so I don't fail my husband or wife, okay? Put that in there. And I know that sounds harsh, but again, you want to use this. There was this nurse in Australia, and you guys, you Kiwis might even know about this. Her name was Bronnie Ware. And we got a couple people from New Zealand on the call. That's what we call them, Kiwis, I think. Anyway, her name was Bronnie Ware, this nurse, and she was a hospice nurse. So she counseled patients at the end of their life. She took care of them, and she asked them a question. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she even wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You guys know what the #1 regret was? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life because I was afraid to take action, not living what I was capable of. Guys, we do not want that. And this is why this is so critically important, okay? Once you've got your positive and negative reasons why, you've got your goals done, there's just one more step. You need to get pictures, okay? And you know, some of you analytical ones are going, oh, come on, please get on with the real estate. Again, this is more important. Just trust me on this, okay? Get pictures of your goals so you can manifest them. I'll give you some examples. I'll give you a couple public examples. Jim Carrey. Google Jim Carrey check. Wrote himself a check for $10 million when he was flat broke. He used to write up his own checking account, okay? A couple of you young guys, Bailey, a check is something we used to use to pay for things, okay, back in the day. Anyway, so he wrote himself this check. He'd go up on the hill by the Hollywood sign and he'd look at it, visualize cashing it, and that's how much money he made for Dumb and Dumber, okay? I'll give you a more recent example. Demi Lovato, when nobody knew who she was, about 10 years ago, posted, I'm going to sing in the Super Bowl. Go watch the last Super Bowl and see who sang in it, okay? So my point is this stuff works. I'll give you some personal examples, okay? When I was 18, you know, I was a realtor. I was going to sell people houses. So I had to have a 4-door car, right? That's what I figured. So I bought this bone ugly freaking 4-door Ford Granada, bench seat in the front seat, just the ugliest piece of you-know-what you've ever seen. Well, I worked with a guy, the guy I was telling you about, and he had a couple of Corvettes and he let me drive one. And that's a key piece. If there's something that you want, go experience it. If it's, you know, car, go test drive it. You know, BS your way to be able to test drive it. If there's a house you want, go to open houses of a house like it. I'll give you a recent example. A lifetime ago, in February of this year, it was a lifetime ago, I went to the Miami Boat Show and I spent 200 grand, and I'm regretting it to this day, because that 200 grand, when this market crashes, which I believe is coming, there's going to be incredible opportunities with cash. But anyway, so I go to this boat show, but I BS'd my way on these 200-foot yachts, okay? I told them I was interested and BS'd my way on these yachts, and I sat in the captain's chair and I visualized owning it. Why? Because it works. So back to my Corvette. So I drove that Corvette. I got a picture out of a magazine of a Corvette. This is before the internet. You couldn't even spell internet yet. And I taped this to the visor of my Granada. So every time I sat in the car, it was right there in front of me. Within a year or two, I had a Corvette. Give you a couple more examples. Again, please know I'm not bragging. I just want to give you guys some hopefully inspiration. So this is, and these are things that mattered to me then. They don't matter to me now. But back then was the TV show Magnum PI. And the detective's name, that it was a detective show, and it was in Hawaii, and Tom Selleck was the actor. And he drove this Ferrari 308, this red Ferrari. And I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I got a picture of that actual car and put it on the visor of the Corvette. Then a year or two, I had a Maserati look just like it. And last example, I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini. And I thought it was important. I'd get girls, you know, I'm a guy. And so what's interesting, though, is when my son was 9 years old, he collected models of exotic cars. And he had about 30 or 40 of them. And you know what? One is right in the other room here. If we take a break, I'll go grab it and show it to you. I literally have it here. I forgot. I should have had it for you. But the model of the car, he had a model of the exact same color and style and everything that I got, and I wrecked, of course. But anyway, guys, get pictures. In fact, let me show you one thing here, and then I'll land the plane on this. Okay, this is my planner, okay? It is on today, the 30th, okay? In the back of this thing, I've got pictures that have been in here. This is like my 3rd or 4th iteration, but I've had the pictures for 20 years in the back of my planner, okay? In fact, it used to be called a Daytimer. Now it's Franklin Covey. The first pictures are pictures of my kids. These are my gratitude pictures. Guys, all of this has to come from a foundation of gratitude. When you're visualizing your goals, you do it from a place, call it prayer. It can be prayer, but you got to do it from a framework of gratitude. So these are pictures of my kids when they were young. Then there's pictures of the things that I wanted. What's crazy is this top picture is exactly like the house I built on the beach before I built it. Okay, I had 10-foot high glass like that, 80 feet long, butt together, travertine floors just like that. Now you want to see something really cool. I don't get to show this on podcast interviews, but see those walls in those bottom pictures, the white walls on both of those pictures are actually two different properties. Right now, this is a picture of my backyard. Look behind me. Okay, now I lost that house on the beach, that testament to my ego that I built. But I live in a compound now. I've got 6 buildings, giant main house, beautiful 2-bedroom guest house on the water. I've got a media building with a video studio I just built upstairs, and a theater room, and a beautiful exercise facility, and on and on and on. And because God's got a sense of humor, I can look out my backyard and see the old mansion that I used to own across the beach that I lost. But anyway, guys, pictures work, okay? And then, I've got, other stuff back here. I got a few $100,000 worth of watches, thought those were important, the Lambo before I ever got it, the Rolls, the Bentley, all this stuff that I got that I thought was important at one time because I had pictures. So now let's talk about a little bit more on strategies for success. I am going to get into some fundamentals of multifamily and give you hopefully some insights that maybe you haven't heard before yet after I do this piece. But again, please believe me when I tell you that what we're going to go through before then is more important, because you have to take action with what you learn. So, Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, talks about having a burning desire. You've got to want it, guys. You truly have to want it. You can be here and be curious, but you're never going to take action unless you've got that burning desire. So that's why the goal setting is so freaking important. But and that's why you have to have the goals and the whys, and you analytical ones, don't just do this in your head. You've got to write it down. It's got to be written down. You got to get it. If you're in your head, you're dead. If you're analytical, okay? So get out of your head. But if you've got, to push through that fear, to push through those limiting beliefs. I mean, lots of us have limiting beliefs. We don't think we're good enough, or we're not old enough, or we're too young, too old, mine used to be, I'm not analytical enough. You've got to push through those. I'm going to talk about those a little bit more in a second. But with a burning desire, you'll get back up when you get knocked down. I call them seminars. That wasn't a $50 million failure. It was a $50 million seminar. And we failed our way to success, guys. I've built 24 businesses. 3 been worth tens of millions of dollars, but the rest were spectacular flaming seminars. But that's okay. Don't fear failure, guys. Fear being in the same freaking place you are right now a year from now, unless you absolutely love where you are right now. That's what you should fear. Fear regret. I met the billionaire owner of Spanx, Sarah Blakely, the women's undergarments, and she started with $5,000, and she was on Forbes this year, and she's just a beautiful human being anyway. But she told me something at a mastermind that we met at, that her dad used to ask her and her siblings every night, what have you failed at today? Those of you with kids, I think that is the most awesome question to ask your kids, to not fear failure. I just love that question. All right, next, you got to make a decision, okay? You got to decide. And a decision is not a maybe, hope, wish. It is done, okay? It's not a 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. It's total 100% commitment. The Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. An example would be, if you're going to attack the island in battle, you're burning your ships because you're taking their darn ships home, okay? That's a decision. It's done, okay? When you've made a decision, you're 100% committed. And there's a huge difference between interested versus committed. If you're just interested, you'll get knocked off track. If you're committed, you're like a train on a track. Committed plus massive action equals, and it inevitably equals success, okay? And then it's not just a dream, it's a freaking outcome. Motivation will get you started, but commitment is what's going to bring you home. And so, and again, it's not a 99.9% thing. It is just, it's completely done. Otherwise you'll have wiggle room. Okay. But when you've got 100% commitment, you also have 100% responsibility, and you have to own 100% responsibility for every aspect of your life. It's not your dog's fault, your cat's fault, your kid's fault. It's your fault for anything that happens to you. And when you own that, you're actually more free and you can take more action. It's my wife distracting me. Hi, baby. And And okay, so that's it on decision. Next thing I want to talk about is positive expectation. You have to decide with positive expectation and optimism that whatever you're going after is going to happen. You know, especially today, guys, if you're on this call, you're a leader. And with everything that's going on right now, the world needs leaders. And it's so easy to get sucked into CNN or ABC or whatever. And guys, the media is not there to inform us. They're there to scare the hell out of us, or they have political, aspirations. Just recognize that. Don't get sucked into it. Stand guard at the door to your mind and bring in the good stuff, okay? I'll go on there for amusement and just to keep my finger on the pulse, and I did suffer through the debate last night, but the point is, be careful what you bring in. Now, if you don't listen to my podcast, I hope you will, because every week I put out a clip called Own Your Power. And it's a 5-minute clip. And even if you don't listen to my interviews with people like Gino Barbero, his brother's on the call here, or other, thought leaders in the space and other people that have, made a lot of money in the multifamily space, you'll enjoy those Own Your Power clips. My podcast is called Lifetime Cashflow. And if you go on your iPhone and you put in real estate, I usually come up #1. So if you search real estate. But anyway, you got to have positive expectation, because what you expect is what you're going to get. Okay, if you expect to win or you expect to lose, you're going to get what you expect. And I'm going to tell you, don't minimize your expectations. Don't operate from that fear or limiting beliefs. You just decide what it is that you want through your goals. You declare it, and God or the universe or whatever you believe will conspire to make it happen. When you expect amazing things, you get amazing things. And that's why you should think and dream big. I'll tell you, this isn't the greatest example, but let me give you an example of when I made sure and lived in this. I never went to college, and but I go to lots of boot camps. Let me see if I can show you guys a picture real quick, because I did kind of a cool picture about this. Yeah, there it is. Good. Can I share? Can you give me permission to share? Guys, Joseph, can I share my screen?
Yes, I just gave it to you.
Okay, great. So I go to boot camps. There's a picture of me with some of the boot camp lanyards that I've been to. Okay. Of course, I'm in front of my Bentley and my Mercedes. A little bit of braggadocious there, but the point is, so I go to lots of boot camps, several a year for decades. I've spent probably $1 million on my education, but I'm wide. Okay, you can't see it in the video here. I'm a wide guy, and so I always get there early. Always, and I'll run to the aisle, so I get an aisle seat so I can pull the chairs apart and I can have room. Okay, well, I made it late to one, and there were 2 seats left, and they're dead center in the middle in a tight row, and I'm like, oh shit. And I sat down, and sure enough, the biggest woman on the planet, I see her lumbering toward me, knocking over drinks, and this is probably a horrible example, but I just decided right then that I was going to have an incredible day. And so I went like this. I was like, sit down, sweetheart. And she sat down, and she was an amazing human being. And we had a wonderful day. And again, probably a trite example, but the point is, however you decide it's going to be is how it's going to be. Every morning I do a little visualization exercise. I sit in this recliner behind me here, and I use my vision boards. Got my vision boards right here. But I'll do gratitude first. There's my travel vision board. You can't kind of see it with the green screen, but I'll do gratitude first. I'll just be grateful for my beautiful bride and my kids and my foundation and my students. But then I'll be grateful for the things that I want as if I already have them. And I probably lost a couple more of you now, but guys, I do this because it freaking works, okay? And I'll even get emotional sometimes being grateful for things I don't even have yet, okay? Because it works. But then I'll make a declaration. And the declaration is it's going to be an awesome freaking day. And it always is. Okay. So you've got to expect positive. We talked about fear and limiting beliefs. When I immigrated to this country, I didn't speak English. I got thrown into school. I found out what bullies were. I got my butt kicked on a daily basis. My mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in the leather shorts that the Germans wear for Oktoberfest and my wooden shoes. Yeah. You can imagine how that went. And then when I got chased home, she chased off the bullies with a fly swatter. So you can imagine how that went the next day. So I didn't think I was good enough. In fact, I used to ask myself a question: how can I show them I'm good enough? And again, many of you have these belief systems that come from a childhood event, And there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, guys, because 99% of it is BS. It's this emotional thing that happened to us that our mind thought was factual, and it's not. So if you have any of these, I'm not old enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not young enough, I don't have enough money, again, I'm not analytical enough, I'm not good enough. Pull this crap out into the daylight when it happens. Don't let it fly by, and just consciously look at it. That's the operative word. Consciously look at it with your adult rational mind, and you will diminish it. I used to be so introverted, I wouldn't raise my hand in class. I'd be terrified of having to speak in class. Now I speak in front of thousands of people a year. And so, I was scheduled to have 800 people at a boot camp in Orlando in May, and we all know what happened with that. So I had to pivot. By the way, some of you may need to pivot and innovate right now. I had to pivot and innovate and go live stream. So, in fact, Joseph, or Nico, if you'll put multifamilyvirtualbootcamp.com in the chat, I'd appreciate it. I threw that website up in 2 days, and you'll see me in my backyard on my phone recording the video for that website because I had to pivot and innovate. And so if that's you, then don't be afraid of that. But that's what I did. And by the way, guys, I'm doing a 2-day event, October 17th and 18th. It's 2 full days, 8-hour days, drinking through a freaking fire hose. It's $97 with a code I'll give you for both days, and I'm not selling anything. Okay, so if you're, and here's the manual for it. Okay. I mean, it's total training. You'll walk away with what you need. You get tons of other resources. I've written tons of other books about this business. You'll get them all. So if you want to come, it's Multifamily Virtual Bootcamp. Use the code RODFRIEND as one word, ROD friend, FRIEND, and you'll get $50 off. It's $97. And again, I'm not selling anything. If you want to come, I promise you'll be glad you did. Anyway. I've got a panel with $3 or $4 billion in assets, actually probably closer to 5 billion assets represented by the panel on Saturday night. I got panels throughout the day to answer questions, but it's not like these events where it's a bunch of different people talking about different things. I'm training for 16 hours. Okay. So we go through every aspect of the business, finding deals, finding the money for deals, syndication, have a syndication attorney coming on, the Fannie agency debt. We'll have an agency lender coming on, due diligence, property management, and on and on and on, every aspect of this business. All right. Now, once you've made a decision and you've pushed through fear, you've got to take that first step. Like Dr. Martin Luther King said, take that first step in faith, and you don't have to see the entire staircase. Lao Tzu said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. We have the law of the first deal in this business, guys. That first deal, it's the hardest, it's the scariest, it takes the longest, and then they're done with it. And you're like, is that all there was? And I see it my students all the time. They take 8 months, they get that first deal, and then the next thing you know, they've got 1,000 units. So the point is, but you've got to take that first step. And guys, you don't have to see the whole road. You can drive all the way across the United States at night, seeing 50 feet in front of you, and you can make it the whole way. And you don't have to know what you're going to encounter the whole way. Your goals are the same way, okay? But you got to take action, okay? You can't just think about this and let this be entertainment, okay? You've got to actually take action with it. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is focus. Guys, especially right now with what's happening. Bring in the good stuff. Go on YouTube, watch the motivational stuff, listen to my podcast, do my Own Your Power clips, stand guard at the door to your mind, because focus is so critical right now. And guys, what you focus on gets bigger, positive or negative. So if you get sucked into all the crap on the media, it's going to get bigger, and you're going to be more fearful and more angry and more frustrated. If you focus on the good stuff and your goals and your whys, that's what's going to get bigger, okay? Incredible, but focus is power, guys. Incredible focus equals incredible success. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. I think they asked her if she wanted to go to an anti-war rally. And she said, no, if you have one for pro-peace, I'll go. That's what I'm talking about here. I get students or people that call me and say, I'm trying to get rid of this student loan debt. I've said, wrong statement. Focus on making enough money so student loan debt is irrelevant, because, again, what you focus on gets bigger. Another thing, you want to make sure that I'll tell you another thing about focus. I'm a shiny penny guy. This is why I've started 24 businesses. Okay. Oh, shiny penny. Oh, another shiny penny. And so I've started lots of businesses. I mean, at one time I had yogurt shops in Denver. I had vending carts selling ice cream cones. I had a carpet cleaning business, and I was flipping houses in Denver. Everything suffered. But then when I focused on just doing the real estate, I bought 500 houses and some apartment complexes in that run. Okay. Focus is power. you've also got to minimize distractions. Okay, I don't know about you, but very often I'll catch myself on the phone scrolling through social media while I'm watching a movie. Okay, when you do that, by the way, actually,
sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I wasn't talking to you. Shut up. Anyway, so when my brain falls out on the floor, it's not pretty. Okay, so you want to minimize those distractions, because when you do that, you're making micro decisions every split second. You'll notice you'll usually see me in one of these black t-shirts. Unless I'm with my wife and she's like, you're not wearing one of those damn black t-shirts. I'm in one of these, so I don't think about what I have to wear. You will always see me in one of these. I teach in front of thousands of people in these and flip-flops. Yes, and it's not like a brand. I wear the flip-flops because they're easy on my feet. But I don't want to think about stuff like this, okay? Like Steve Jobs always wore the same thing. Now, I'm not comparing myself to him, but the point is he minimizes his decisions because you can get what's called decision fatigue. Very, very important. Also, don't be afraid to say no. Very, very important. Now, I listen to very few podcasts. One of them that I really enjoy is Tim Ferriss. And I get excited because my podcast just exceeded 9 million downloads. Well, I think he gets that a week, okay? But what he does is he deconstructs world-class performers, best in the world, best of class, whatever they do, athletes, actors, Arnold and Jamie Foxx, Ed Norton, billionaires, Ray Dalio. He's the best of the best on there. And he talks about how they, he deconstructs them. Well, I started to notice a pattern. The pattern is they all freaking meditate. That's a clue, guys. What does meditation do? Enhances your focus. Focus is power. Very, very important. All right. Now, if you guys haven't learned already, this multifamily business is a team sport. Yes, you can do single family flipping and wholesaling by yourself, no problem, but you're not going to do any significant multifamily by yourself. And when you get in a team, it is critical that you play to your strengths, okay? Because strengths are your greatest assets. You don't want to try to maximize your weaknesses. What you want to do is align, hire, or partner for your weaknesses. You're going to get much further, much faster. I interviewed these three kids on my podcast. Kids that are in their 20s. There was 70 million, 80 million in assets between them. Every one of them was a partnership between an analytical person and an outgoing person. Every one of them. And I see that time and time again. I don't know if that's the case with Gino and Jake and Gino, but as my situation as well. I'm the mouthpiece now, and which is surprising because I was such an introvert. And Robert is he's done $1.5 billion worth of commercial multifamily. He's a CPA, and he's the kind of guy you can lock in a room with a spreadsheet and throw raw meat in once in a while, and he's thrilled. So he's a mutant, but no, I'm kidding. But the point is, I'm playing to my strengths now, and he's playing to his, and that's so critical. Okay, so how do you find your strengths? You can do a personality profile, do a Myers-Briggs or a DISC profile. Ask 5 of your friends. They'll be happy to tell you what your weaknesses are, but they'll tell you what your strengths are as well. But the key here is, guys, and this ties into that Bronnie Ware story about regret. Don't live someone else's life, because when you're playing in your strengths, you're playing in something that you love. Okay, and this business being a team sport, you're going to have to influence people. And to influence people, you have to have passion, okay? And to have passion, you have to love what it is you're doing, all right? When you love what you do, you have passion, you have the ability to influence. And when you operate from passion, first of all, you're loving life, which, I mean, guys, we're put on this earth to be happy. I just posted in my multifamily group on Facebook a post with my wife and I looking at each other about happiness, because life is to be happy. And if you're not working in your strength, you're not going to be happy, because you're going to be doing crap you don't like, okay? So, what I like to tell people is to be able to influence people, it starts with competence. You have to know this business. So you're in the right spot. But then that competence equates to confidence. And then that confidence equates to your ability to influence, but you got to be passionate as well. You got to love it, okay? And the beautiful thing about passion is, first of all, it's your fuel. Second of all, it's something that juices you. And passion, it breeds creativity, breeds innovation. It minimizes or even greatly eliminates fear. So that's where you want to operate. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is your peer group. Now, you've got an incredible group you've got going here. Napoleon Hill talks about the mastermind and Think and Grow Rich. It's chapter 10. I literally just happened to be reading it again while I was in Cancun, and I'm back through it. This is, by the way, I've given away, I'm not exaggerating or bragging, but about 3,000 copies of this, because everyone at my live events gets a copy of this. This is a book. If you haven't read it, for God's sakes, read it immediately. And secondly, if you have read it again, because it's something you should read a couple times a year. All right. But your peer group, you've got an amazing group here. You want to be around people that will hold you to a higher standard. People that, you know, if you're around people, like if you're playing somebody in tennis that's worse than you, are you going to get better or worse? And so, you know, I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy. So I created my own mastermind, and it's called the Multifamily Boardroom. And no, you can't get in it unless you've got, you know, at least a few hundred doors minimum. And I just brought on 3 billionaires literally over the last week. So we now have, I think, probably close to 18 billion in assets represented by the people in there. But it started here in my house. I brought 16 people that I had on my podcast to my house. I said, no charge, just come. We're gonna spitball for a couple of days. And it was amazing. And you know, because like in the book, Think and Grow Rich, when you get two like minds together, they create this third intangible third mind that's greater than the sum of the parts. Okay. And so it's you know, you want to be around people that are going to lift you up. We all have people around us that are afraid of what we're doing, or minimize what we're doing, or try to hold us back, maybe because they love us and they're afraid of losing us. But it's really critical that you're careful, and sometimes they're family, okay? And I will tell you, love your family, choose your peers. Very, very important. You have to be around people that aren't going to hold you back, even, you know, subtly. Very, very important. You want people that are going to say, hey, what are you up to? They're pushing you, they're holding you accountable. They're, you know, again, you want to be around people that think what you think is hard is easy. You also want to establish some habits for success. I told you about my little morning routine. It takes all of 3 minutes. You can do it in bed even, whatever. But you want to have these habits. Of course, if you've got a W-2 job, or you've got a business that you're running and you're doing this on the side, it's a side hustle, and you've got kids, you need to have incredible energy. And so you've got to be paying attention to your health. You better be exercising. You better be eating well. You better be drinking the right things. And it's very, very, you know, so that's another habit for success. Your habits are going to make you or break you. In my warrior program, my mentorship program, my love language is gifts. Okay. And I would tell you, if you love anyone in your life, you should get that book, The 5 Languages of Love, so you can give them love in the way they feel it. But my love language to give love is gifts. And so my students all get tons of gifts from me, tons of books. One of the books is a book called The Slight Edge. And it's about those little decisions that you make every day that traject your life up or traject your life down. Okay. Very good book to read. But again, it's about your habits and your decisions. You know, you want the habit of taking immediate action. The most successful people on the planet make decisions quickly and change them, if at all, very, very slowly. You know, you want to be a habit would be being relationship and team driven. You know, incredible self-discipline around, you know, here I am. What is it? It's almost 8 o'clock here. My beautiful bride is in their room, and I'm adding value to you guys because I freaking love this. I mean, there's some of the hundreds of thank you cards. You can't even see them all behind my green screen. I mean, I love what I'm doing here. And again, this talks to working in my passion. So make sure you're working in your passion. A couple more things and we'll get into the multifamily. Don't worry, it's coming. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is tenacity. Guys, are you gonna get your nose bloodied? Are you gonna get your butt kicked? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If you're not having setbacks or failures, respectfully, you're not trying, okay? You're in your comfort zone. You're just not trying, because that's what life's about. But you can't quit. You know, when I lost everything in 2008, I started a company. I built a company to help people save their homes. It was a litigation support company, and I built law firms in 5 states, and we fought foreclosures and we did loan modification. We saved thousands of families' homes. I hated the business because nobody was happy, but we saved thousands of families' homes. But I will tell you, back in 2010, it almost went bankrupt. December 2010, I remember, I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to shut this down. But if you know what it is you want, your outcome, if you know what your outcome is, and you bump up against a wall, you focus on your outcome and you change your approach. And if that doesn't work, you focus on your outcome and you change your approach. This is a success formula. And if that doesn't work, you focus on your outcome, keep in your mind's eye, and you change your approach. You guys get the message here, okay? Very, very important that, and so I changed my approach. It turned into a $10 million company with 60 employees, which I sold last year. So, but I didn't quit. You know, there's a book called 3 Feet from the Gold. You know, a lot of people will quit. You know, and they don't stick with it. And that's why your goals and your whys are so important. You know, tenacity is power. And tenacity, I will tell you, will beat talent almost every time. You know, talent, success, okay? You just, it's stubbornness, it's courage, resolve, strength of character, you know, fortitude, toughness. You just don't give up. And you recognize that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You stay focused on the goal. You stay motivated no matter what happens. You know, you believe in your mission, and you know, you recognize that problems and failures are nothing but feedback, and we need that feedback. You know, I send a survey to after every event I ever do, and 99% of the responses are positive. But I look at the constructive ones so I can make it better, because that's what it's about. It's about constant and never-ending improvement. You know, it's never a failure unless you didn't get the memo, unless you didn't learn, or unless you gave up. Okay, we fail our way to success, guys. Remember, problems truly are a gift. They're feedback. And like I said, if you don't have problems, you're dead, or you're just not trying. So, all right. And then the last thing I want to share with you, I talked about it before I get into the multifamily. Actually, 2 things. The first one is gratitude. Gratitude is the most important emotion that you can have in your life. It's impossible to be fearful and grateful at the same time. So if you're feeling fear for whatever's happening outside right now with the COVID, with your jobs, whatever, be grateful for what you have, and you're not fearful. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. Gratitude strengthens our immune system, makes our heart stronger, lowers our blood pressure, brings us closer to our spirituality. You know, if you're not journaling, I would highly encourage you to journal magic moments at least once a week with your family, especially if you have kids. Okay, so important. But gratitude is what attracts what you want into your life, and it's the only thing that attracts it. Very, very important. Last thing I want to talk about is contribution, and then we'll get into multifamily. And I want to share this with you because it ties into goals. So I told you about that house I built on the beach. And again, that was unthinkable when I was 18, but I just decided that's what I wanted, and I did it. And this house was freaking magnificent, okay? 10,000 square feet, giant waterfall from the 2nd floor balcony into the pool, wine cellar, elevator. To give you an idea of the house, on the 2nd floor, there was an aquarium around the spiral staircase that cost me almost 200 grand. So that gives you an idea of the house. Well, 2 months after I moved in, I worked for this thing for 20 freaking years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. Waterfalls coming in from 2 places. The pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego that I built. That's truly what it was. It was to prove to the world I was good enough. And I got depressed. And I don't mean just a little bummed. I mean, I was really bummed. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I just achieved success like times 1,000, and I'm bummed. And what I realized is there were a few things going on. I want to share them with you, and then we'll land the plane on this. One was, you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Okay, like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for your future. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. That was one thing. Second thing is, the happiness doesn't come from the goals. The goals are really important. You have to have them, and they'll drive you. But the happiness comes from continual progress and growth. So it's very important that when you do your weekly planning, that you acknowledge what you got done, even if it was small, because you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have delays. But if you're consciously acknowledging, just patting yourself on the back, good job, Rod, for a split second, you're going to remain happy because you're progressing and growing. Very important. All right. But the real big thing was, I'd been totally focused on Rod. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. Well, so I figured I had to get out of this funk. So I bought some books, and one of them was a book from Tony Robbins, and I went and saw him in Fort Lauderdale, and changed my life. I mean, I spent 20 years following him around the planet, and went to several events a year for 20 years. If you have an opportunity to see him, just do it. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. But found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, wow, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I had to be 40 years old to get that memo, but I got it. And I went back home, and I decided to feed 5 families for Thanksgiving. We do it for Christmas now. But So we called a church and we found 5. We said, who really needs help? And we got 5 families, and we went and bought these big boxes of food, found out if they had kids. We got toys for the kids. We got frozen turkeys, roasting pans. We figured they didn't have a roasting pan. And the 3rd family changed my life. I walked up to this door, and this lady lived, and this was actually in Denver. Okay, I'd gone back to Denver to be with my brother for Thanksgiving holiday, and I said, let's go feed 5 families, and that's where it happened. But this was a row house. It was a shotgun. I don't know if you live in New York, you've got these, I'm sure. They're really crappy. They're not even 1 bedrooms. You walk through the living room, through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which has the bathroom off of it. Okay, that was the design. Horrible design. Not even a 1 bedroom because you got to walk through it to get to the kitchen. Well, this lady lived there with 5 kids. She comes out, she sees the food. She starts crying. The kids come out. The older ones start crying. I start crying, and I'm freaking hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 20 years, we fed 80,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton. And I'm not doing this for your accolades. I'm doing this. I'm telling you this for another reason. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies, local children. I've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to give the local police departments for their officers to keep in their vehicles. So if they encounter a child that's traumatized, they can comfort the child. So what I want to tell you is if you are not incorporating gratitude into your life right now, you're making a big mistake. And if you're thinking, I'll give back when I have money, big mistake. I will tell you, I've interviewed billionaires on my podcast, and I can tell if they're like I was back then, totally focused on themselves, not trying to make the world a better place. I don't care if you just help 1 family, 1 elderly person, pick a cause that juices you, the environment, animals, whatever it is, and do something because there's a big difference between success between success and fulfillment. Okay. And I wasn't fulfilled. And that's what gives your life meaning. So again, incorporate contribution. You know, so many of us, we think we have to achieve to be happy. When you do it the way I'm describing, you'll be happily achieving. Much better way to go, guys. All right. Do we need to take a quick break, or shall I just roll right into the multifamily? Joseph, I don't know how you guys do it.
You can roll right into it.
All right, let's do it. All right. So
if you have to leave in the middle, that's fine. And you must leave, you could leave. You're going to be missing some good golden nuggets and stuff, but you can do so if you want to.
Yeah. By the way, you've got the wrong website in here. Put in multifamily virtual boot. Oh, there it is. I see it. I'm sorry. I didn't see it on top. Perfect. And put in the code RODFRIEND, because then it's $97. If you guys want to spend a couple days with me, I promise you'll be glad you did. I've not even had 1 critical comment about that event, except that the breaks are too short. That's the 1 critical comment I got. And I've had 2,000 people now go through them. Yeah, that's an exaggeration. I've had 1,800 people go through them. Anyway, so I've done 2 live stream events now. This will be the 3rd. All right. So in this business, I want to give you a high level overview. Now, obviously, I can't go real deep on everything, but I want to kind of give you a whole overview on really, in my opinion, some key pieces. The first thing you do if you haven't started yet, is you've got to look in the mirror and do a self-evaluation. You know, look at your financial resources, your skill sets, your mentors, you know, this meetup that you're in, potential investors, friends. And what you're going to look for is you're going to put a team together and you want to build up any deficiencies that you may have. Okay. So you want to look at where you may have a deficiency. And again, that's what's so great about this business is that it's a team sport. And then the next thing you've got to do, and these aren't in sequence, but you need to brand yourself. Okay. So you hang your shingle. And most people will pick a name that has the word capital at the end, or partners at the end, or real estate, or investments, or something like that. Ours for our acquisitions is REM Capital Group. So you pick a name, you go on the Secretary of State, you make sure the name's available. Go on GoDaddy and see if you can find a domain name that ties in. Make sure you do a trademark check because you know, if it's being used, then you can't use it. But then, you know, you set up an LLC with that name, doesn't cost much money, and you hang your shingle, okay? And you throw up a website, costs you maybe $100, $200, and then you're credible. So when you go talk to investors and brokers and the like, you know, you're taken seriously. And there's lots of examples of these websites out there. But you know, but the thing to remember here is nobody gets started at this alone. So what you want, and now in my coaching program, we've got, you know, tons of sponsorship opportunities and people that will align with you. But if you can go out there and do that yourself, there's probably people in this group that own, you know, hundreds of doors. What you want to do is connect with them and just have a conversation where if you find a deal, you know, maybe you can partner together on it. And that's how everybody starts this business. And is they align with somebody. And then when they go talk to investors and they talk to brokers and sellers, they can use the we word. You know, we have 300 doors or 200 doors or whatever, and there's more credibility. Okay. That's what's so beautiful about commercial real estate, is that it's a team sport. It truly, the beauty, I mean, so many advantages to that, because, you know, when you're going out and you're getting financing, they're going to look at, you know, you need to have a net worth equal to the loan amount. Well, it's the net worth of the team. You need to have 10% liquidity after the closing. You know, post-closing liquidity, it's called, but it's the liquidity of the team. You need to have experience, but it's the experience of the team. Okay, that's what's so beautiful about this business. And if you're playing to your strengths and you align to other people that are playing to their strengths, watch the you know what out. Okay, you are going to kill it. Okay, so that's a key. Then you've got to, once you brand yourself, you've got to establish an investment criteria. Well, you got to pick a market. You know, I can suggest some markets to consider first. First of all, your backyard obviously is the best market, and I consider your backyard a 2-hour drive around you. But if that doesn't apply, then maybe somewhere you grew up, somewhere you went to school, somewhere you know well. For me, that would be Denver. I have had hundreds of properties that I own there. I had 500 houses there one time, multiple apartment complexes, and I can still name every street across the whole town because they're alphabetical and easy to remember. So that would be option 2 to pick, a place you know well or you grew up. Option 3, so there's your backyard, place you know well. Third would be somewhere you got boots on the ground. You know, somewhere you've got friends or family that have their ear to the ground. They know what businesses are going in, going out, and can help you if you need help. So those are the markets I consider. Once you pick your market, you've got to establish your investment criteria. You've got to decide what size and type real estate you're going to go after. Now, you guys, again, some of this is going to be rudimentary. Forgive me for those of you that are seasoned. I think you'll still get some distinctions here, but for the people that are fairly new, some of this is going to be rudimentary. But so there's 2 types of multifamily real estate. There's residential and there's commercial. Residential, duplex, triplex, fourplex, 2-family, 3-family, 4-family, where you guys are at. And listen, those are awesome. There's nothing wrong with plexes or 2, 3, 4-family properties because they have residential financing, 30-year fixed financing. It's fantastic. If you live in it, you can get 97% loan. If you're a vet, you can get 100% loan. I mean, it's fantastic financing. But your value is based on comparable sales. So it's very hard to really massively ramp the value. Now, commercial is a completely different story. Commercial multifamily, the value is based on a multiple of the net income. It's called the net operating income, the NOI. It's the most important number you need to know. And so what is the NOI? It's the gross income on the property from all sources. It's the property related expenses, and what's left is the net income. It does not include debt, okay? But it's taxes, maintenance, management, all that stuff, okay? Multifamily is based on a multiple of that. So your ability to improve the NOI, the net income, is critical. Now, if you're a Grant Cardone, you're out there and you're buying what's called yield plays, where you're buying a property, you know, he spends as much as $200,000 a unit plus, banking on rent appreciation. I hate to say it, guys, but I don't know if you've looked out the window. I don't think we're going to have rent appreciation for a while. The storm is coming. Okay, I just did a YouTube video on the coming crash of 2021 in real estate. You know, believe it or not, I've been wrong before, but this smells like 2006 and 7 to me on steroids. And I think there's going to be some serious pain in this country, and that's not something to fear, because with crisis comes opportunity. And so I've got my rose-colored glasses on, and I want to get in cash. That's why I was bemoaning the $200,000 I blew on stupid shit like a watch, and that I wish I had that back, that I could, you know, spend it on real estate with what's coming. But anyway, so when you're looking at a market, let me give you some websites that you can look at, because you want to make sure 3 things are happening in that market. You want to make sure 3 things are growing, rather. Let me rephrase that: jobs, income, and employment. What do you think is the most important? Jobs. I know that's what you were thinking, so let me just tell you. It's jobs, okay? And let me give you some websites that you can, and don't be intimidated by this. It's really easy to figure this stuff out. You just got to play with it. Bestplaces.net is one. City-data.com is another one. Datausa.io is another one. And just go in there and look at, what's happening in that demographic. Look at the median income. Look at, what the average home price is. And I would suggest you have a median income a median home price of at least $80,000. Make sure the vacant housing is not over 20%. You're not going to see that very often anymore, but these are things you want to look at. You want to go on spotcrime.com or Best Places, I think, has it as well. You want to look at the crime statistics. And if you want to know where the hood is, look where you live now. Look at the crime there. It'll probably shock you how much crime happens in your backyard. But then go look around and you'll find the hood. Okay, there's no problem. And the other thing we've got Google now. Back when I'm 60 years old. When I got in this business, the MLS book is what we got in the mail. That's how we knew it was for sale. I mean, you guys are so freaking blessed to live in this day and age. You can be in your underwear with a phone and literally tie up a property. I won't go look at an asset unless we have it under contract. I will not get in a plane and go look. But you can go on Google Earth and drive down the street and go down to the main intersection and see what the businesses are there. I want to see national retail tenants. If there's a pawn shop and a liquor store and a strip club, that's a clue. Okay. And so, but you can do all that from your laptop. It's so amazing. And you're so blessed to have this. And that's why that's another thing that's so exciting about this business is you pretty much can buy anywhere. Okay. And truly can. Now, I would not suggest if you live in New York that you buy in on the West Coast. That's kind of dumb because it's full day travel. Stay closer to home. If none of those areas, if none of those options, place you live now, backyard, place you have used to live or spent some time, or place where you have boots on the ground applies, then just stay close to home. If you're in New York, I wouldn't go past I would say Kansas would be the line. That would be it. I wouldn't go past that. It'd be silly to. Honestly, there's enough low-hanging fruit near you guys, okay? All right. Now, once you pick that market, you got to start building relationships. Guys, this is a relationship business. You want to develop relationships with brokers. You want to, brokers can make you wealthy. Absolutely. Now, they have been the belle of the ball. They're still kind of the belle in the ball, but I promise you, I really believe that's going to change next year. And they'll be, we've found them calling us more often than not now. But you want to build these relationships. And what is a relationship? Nothing but a friendship. I'd recommend that you get a CRM, client relationship management software. I wouldn't even use Excel. I mean, there's free ones and not free ones. We use HubSpot and Salesforce and Infusionsoft, and they're expensive, but there's Zoho.com. There's really simple systems. There's Insightly, but use one of these to track these relationships that you're building. So you remember to stay in front of them because you're going to be building relationships with lots of different people. I'm going to describe here. Brokers is one of them for sure. Property managers. No one knows more about that submarket than a property manager. The things you need to know. I will tell you, when we go into a market, and we're in about 6 or 7 now, we go into a market, one of the favorite things that we do is interview the property managers for a day or two because we learn so much about that market, and so, but you want to develop relationships. I host like I say, a mastermind now. It's the largest of its kind, I think, in the world or in the country for sure. And one of the guys on there has, I think he's pushing 5,000 units now, and 1,700 of them he got from his management company. Okay, because if you're a property manager and the property's going to get sold, who do you want to buy it? Someone right? So you keep the management. So you want to develop relationships with property managers, and you also want to develop relationships with bankers, guys. Okay, I will tell you, especially if what I think is going to happen happens. If there's a crash and they get a lot of bank REO properties, if you've got a relationship with them, you'll have an opportunity. If you listen to my podcast and you listen to the guys with thousands of units, you start to hear a pattern almost most of the time. Most of them started in 9, 10, and 11. That's a clue, guys. Okay, so quite a few of them, bought bank-owned properties. They were financed by bankers. But the reason you want relationships with bankers is they can also make you a lot of money. I mean, I've got, I had a kid on my podcast when I first started it that bought $1 million property for $5,000 down with a bank loan because he had a relationship with the banker. And he was a kid, he was in his 20s, but he had a relationship with the banker, and the banker let the seller carry a second. That's what in a smaller, now I'm not, by the way, I'm not talking about Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Fifth Third, Chase, not talking about the national banks. Develop relationships with the local and regional banks. Those are the ones you can really develop relationships with. But you just call them and say, hey, if you're out of state, say, do you loan to out of state people? If they say no, okay, next, go on to the next one. If you find one that does, then say, who's your commercial lender, and you start a relationship over the phone. And but here's something really important. As you're building these relationships with people, if you don't live in that market, start them over the phone, but then you must go spend some days there. It completely opens up when you do. You go and you book your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you look at properties with the brokers, and you meet with investors, and you lock up your whole day. But once they meet you and they see your passion and your enthusiasm, and they see that you're real, everything changes. So it's critical that you do that. But again, bankers, I've got a student, a 100% finance deal, Andrew Fleeman, 100% finance deal, $1.3 million, relationship with the banker. So again, it might be tighter now. That was about a year ago, but the point is these relationships can make you a lot of money. Now, you want to get up to speed on evaluating deals as fast as you can, okay? My goal with my students and my events and everything else that I do is to shorten the learning curve, to close the gap as fast as we can, especially because I believe there's incredible opportunity coming. And if you're not up to speed in time, you're not going to be able to capitalize on it. But one of the ways to get up to speed fast, let me back up. If you get a package from a broker on LoopNet, for example, oh, by the way, how do you find the best brokers? Go on LoopNet and just look for the ones that have the most of the size and type that you're interested in. By the way, there's, of course, 4 classifications of properties. I should have gone over this: A, B, C, and D, right? We all know what A properties are. They're the brand new ones. Do not do D. Just trust me on this, guys. I've done lots of, I have a shirt. I sell shirts at my event now that say, ask me how I know. I've made every freaking mistake you can possibly make, and I usually follow up a mistake example with ask me how I know. Well, this isn't ask me how I know. Don't do D properties. I've had people killed in my houses, around them, behind them. I've had a property where I bought almost a whole block. They blocked off this before I got in there and really went to work, but they blocked off the end of the block to slow down the drug traffic. Not stop it, just slow it down a little bit. I had a property where they cut a hole in the front door so they could pass the crack through more easily. Okay, so guys, you do not want that brain damage. Trust me. Yes, you'll see higher cash flow, but there's no exit strategy. Life is too short for that kind of stuff. So don't do it. Look for C and B assets in A and B areas. And you want to look for assets where you can raise the NOI. Okay. And we talked about the power of the NOI. I'll give you a couple of examples. We have an asset in Beaver Creek, Ohio. This is an extreme example. I'm going to tell you this is not normal. But this example, 100-unit property, 101 actually got destroyed by a tornado. And we're finally back online. We're about 80% occupied now. We are getting a $650 rent bump. Do you want to know what that means? $650. Let me get my calculator because I don't think I can think of that many zeros. 650 times 12. Oh, I'm sorry. 650 times 101, right? 101 units times 12. And let's divide it by I'll divide it by a 6 cap. That's probably a 5 cap. That's a $13 million increase in value. Okay, guys? That's why we like this business, guys, okay? But that's an extreme example. We've got an asset in Dallas, 208 units. We'll have about an $8 to $9 million swing there with a $250 rent bump. So guys, that's why we love this business. That's a value add play. You go in there, and I kind of jumping around a little bit, but you go in there and I talked about Grant Cardone's as a yield play. This is, and I forgot to finish the thought process. What we like is value add, okay? And a value add, you go in there and you clean it up. You put in maybe a new amenity package, maybe new plank flooring, an appliance package, blinds, fixtures, plumbing and lighting fixtures, and you bump the rents. And when you do, then you've instantly increased the value. That's the beautiful thing about commercial real estate, because any increase of that NOI is an instant increase in value. And that's called value add. And that's all we do. Okay. And so I started talking about Grant, he's going to have some pissed off investors because they're not going to get the returns. Anybody that's doing yield plays is not going to get the returns that they promised their investors because I truly believe rents are going to flatline for a while. And if you're doing your pro formas, guys, do not be putting 2 and 3% rent bumps in there. That is not realistic right now, not with everything that's happening. Please be Be even uber conservative right now. You know, we were kissing 200 frogs to buy a property. We're probably up to 300 now. And we are being, you know, the stress testing we're doing on a deal. Like we just bought an asset in Cincinnati. We can break even at 65% occupied, okay? We have $1 million in the bank on that asset just in case. Operating reserve. It doesn't get touched unless it's, you know, what hits the fan. We bought a beautiful B, which will be an A asset just northeast of Atlanta, 116 units, $500,000 in the bank on that one. Oh, no, sorry. We did $1.5 million on the Cincinnati and $1 million on the Atlanta one. Just uber conservative right now. Be super conservative right now, guys, because, you know, the unemployment is off the chain. You know, you hear about all this great stuff on the news with employment, but guys, lots of people are being laid off right now. And so, you know, we'll see. I hope it doesn't get as bad as I think it could, but again, with crisis comes opportunity. So we talk about shortening your learning curve. If you get a package from a broker on LoopNet, you're going to find that it's primarily pro forma, which is primarily toilet paper. Okay, you don't need to know what they think the property will do. You need to know what it's done historically, especially in the market cycle that we're in right now, or where we are in the market cycle. And unfortunately, you don't get a lot of that information until you actually have the property locked up. It's so counterintuitive, and so it's kind of hard to really wrap your hands around it without all the backup that you need. And so one of the ways that, you know, I encourage my students to get up to speed faster is to register on all the commercial real estate auction websites. Okay, register on all the commercial real estate. In fact, there's going to be a lot of auction properties coming up as well. It'd be good for you to get well versed on them if you haven't purchased something at auction. But there's about a dozen. Okay, register on them, and here's why. If you bid on a property at auction and you're the successful bidder and you back out, you lose a lot of money. Okay, and you know, on a typical deal, if you get a package from a broker, well, in a normal world, you'd get a 30-day due diligence period before your money is non-refundable, before it goes hard is what it's called. Now, you know, deals are that due diligence period is shorter, but you should be having COVID clauses in there to keep it long right now. But we did just do a bid on a 400 unit asset, and we went hard with a $500,000 day one. We didn't get it, but you know, it was a screaming deal. We knew it was a screaming deal. But the point is, normally you'd have a due diligence period. Well, in an auction property, you're doing due diligence on that asset, and you're doing due diligence on a property you're not even sure you're going to get. And so, you know, their packages are so much more complete. So when you get a package on an auction property, you'll get appraisals, you'll get other third-party reports like environmental reports, building inspections, things like that that'll help you learn the business, okay? Help you get more comfortable with the business. So I highly recommend you register. But let me say this, do not attempt to take one of those properties down without me or someone like me looking over your shoulder, because of that short due diligence fuse, you know, an unscrupulous seller will throw their property up for auction hoping a defect gets missed. Okay, so again, don't make that be your first property. That can be a real seminar for you. And lastly, use a separate email address because they'll drive you crazy with the freaking emails, but a great way to learn. Because guys, repetition is the mother of skill. The more deals you look at, you know, you get to a point where you can smell if a deal's a good deal. And that only happens through repetition and looking at lots of deals. Okay. Let's see. I talked about auctions. Now, once you pick a market, I would highly, and you know this is the market you're going to buy in. I would highly, there's all sorts of auction websites, but if you Google commercial auction, 10X is one. Oh God, I've got a bunch in my book. I don't have them here in front of me. If you Google them, you'll find them. Just Google commercial auctions. Anyway, once you pick a market and you really like that market, and you know you're going to buy there, I would highly encourage you to do a direct-to-seller campaign. What do I mean by that? Mailers, okay? Or even cold call. There's a secret to success in this and any business. When you're willing to do what other people aren't willing to do, you will be a success. When I was, you know, my second year in real estate, I told you made $8 grand. My third year, I started knocking on doors of people who are in foreclosure, you know. Hey, I'm Rod. I saw you having some trouble with countrywide funding. And I bought 500 houses there, guys, knocking on doors. Doing, you know, who does that, right? Well, I did, and that's how it worked. Well, when I say mailers, I'm not talking about thousands of letters, okay? I'm talking about maybe a few hundred, because I'm going to give you some parameters. Okay, you want to mail people that ideally have owned 20 years. If not, if the list is too small, go to 10. So we're talking about, and don't go over 50 units because you're not going to get anywhere mailing over, in fact, even probably over 40. But between 5 and 40 units is a sweet spot. Why? Because it's mom and pop sellers. Okay, and if you get them that have owned for 20 years, I'll tell you why that's a big deal in a minute. But you create this list, but you got to take it a step further, because what you're going to find is most commercial real estate is owned in an entity, meaning in like an LLC or a corporation or a partnership or whatever. And if you mail to the registered agent of that entity, where do you think that mail ends up? Right? Right, exactly. So what you got to do is go to the Secretary of State's office and look up that entity and see who the principals are that own it, and you'll get their mailing and home mailing addresses. And that sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but you can outsource it. Okay, at one time I had 8 virtual assistants in the Philippines. The only reason I had so many is because I got every mobile home park in the entire country, okay? And I had them go on Google Earth, and they would fly around, because a lot of them aren't categorized correctly. And they'd fly around on Google Earth and find them and identify them. I had a geocode overlay, and they'd get the owner's name. And they did all this for me. And I never pulled the trigger on mobile home parks, but I got this awesome list. Anyway, but the 6 of those VAs, I was paying $1.93 an hour, full time, 40 hours a week, and they loved it. It wasn't me taking advantage of them. They spoke English, the whole thing. So guys, you can outsource this if you need to, but again, you're only talking about a few hundred. So you go on the Secretary of State, you get their owners' mailing addresses, and you mail them there. Now, a couple quick things about the mail itself. You want to make sure you handwrite the envelope. Very important. You can hire people to do that. It's not that expensive. You get stay-at-home moms or vets or disabled vets to address the envelopes and stuff the envelopes for you. Or you do it yourself. You know, you suck it up and you do it yourself. But the letter should be typed. And I will tell you, you will increase the response rate if you've got a picture of you and your family on there. And the other thing is, you must have the address of the property in the first paragraph, ideally on the first line. Okay, so they see that address. And you want to have multiple ways for them to contact you. I used to have a website. It was called thekleifamily.com. And there's a picture of me and my wife. We buy apartments or we buy mobile home parks. I had 2 of them, actually, and I don't remember the other one. I think the other one was, I don't remember. The Khleifs. It was thekleifs.com. Anyway, somebody's not muted. And you want multiple ways for them to get back with you. And I'll give you a ninja trick that I don't share very often. I think I've shared it once. So first of all, phone number. Second of all, email. If you do that website, throw it up for nothing on Upwork or Fiverr. Have a website thrown up with a picture of you and a contact form for them to contact you. But here's the ninja trick. Now, it costs more money. Put in a self-addressed stamped card in the letter. It says how many units do you have, the address, and how much money they want for the property. Because these 80-year-old owners, they're used to the mail. Okay, and I tell you, it can be very powerful, but of course you're paying double the cost because you're putting postage on them, but it works. Okay. And now let me give you an example. Most mailers get about a 0.5% response rate. If you get a 1%, you're pretty happy. I got a 6 to 9% response rate every time I did it. I'm not exaggerating, guys. I don't do it anymore. We're into 200 units or higher, but the point is it works. Okay. All right. Let me give you some other examples of doing what other people aren't willing to do. I had these kids on my podcast, Sterling and Jacob, and they had just bought a 50 unit that they found by driving for dollars. Okay? People do it in the single family space. I don't know why they don't do it in the multifamily space. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Drive around, look for rundown properties. Now, they did whatever they had to do to find the owners. I think they found that owner through the daughter on Facebook. That's doing what other people aren't willing to do. When I interviewed them, they had they'd closed on that 50. They had a 48 unit under contract that they found by calling for rent ads in Craigslist and saying how they're interested in selling. Who does that? Well, they did. And now he's up to 1,200 doors now. So again, doing what other people aren't willing to do. And here's another thing. You know, if you are direct marketing to sellers, and you can make outbound calls too, you can have somebody pick up the phone, get phone numbers, and call and say, hey, my boss is looking for a deal. He's got 30 days to buy a property. And what does that do? That makes them think that you're under a 1031 and you're locked in and they've got a little edge on you. Okay. He's got 30 days to buy a property. And I know you don't have it up for sale, but if you ever thought of selling, I'd love to set up a call with you and him or her. And you could pay somebody to do that, guys, and spiff them if they get you an appointment. So again, it's doing what other people aren't willing to do. But if you do this and you are direct to seller, there are going to be deals you don't want to do or can't do. And you need to find people that are buying in your market because you can wholesale them. I've got 2 students this in the last 12 months, each made over $100,000 wholesaling a property. Early on in my podcast, 3 years ago, you heard me say, I've got a friend that made $100,000 wholesaling an apartment here in Sarasota. Well, it was my brother. He just didn't want me to say it was him on the podcast. So there's 3 people made over 100 grand wholesaling an apartment building. So again, if you do direct to seller, make sure you're connected with people that are buying properties in your market. Make sure you're networking like you guys are doing here, so that you've got an opportunity to possibly flip something. Well, it's not even a flip. It's a wholesale. Everybody knows what wholesaling is on this call, yes? Is there anybody doesn't know? Okay, all right. Now, if you decide to go direct to seller, you want to be very, very, and especially if you go after properties that have been owned for 20 plus years, you want to be very, very good at having a conversation around seller financing. Because I'm going to tell you, when somebody is older, they're not going to take that money from an asset they sold that they've owned for 20 years and put it into another high risk investment. It's going to go in the bank at what could be negative interest before too long. Okay. But right now it's 1% interest. And so you want to, and they'll be fully depreciated, meaning that when they sell, they're going to pay a big chunk to Uncle Sam. And so you want to be good at having a conversation, something like this, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you know, I'm going to buy your property for $1 million, but you know, after Uncle Sam takes his chunk, you'll have what, 700,000 left. And I know you're going to put it in the bank and live on the cash flow. Here's what your payment will be at 1% interest. Now, if you work with me, I'll give you enough of a down payment so you know I'm serious, but I'm going to give you 3, 4, 5, 6% interest, and you're only going to pay taxes on the amount you get from me every year, and your payment from me is going to be 3 or 4 times what you get from the bank. Guys, if you don't have that conversation with a seller that's retiring, you are doing them a disservice. And there's nothing better than seller financing. I've done tons of deals with seller financing. Now, the second thing I want to mention to you is when you're dealing with a retiree, seller bonding is huge. Focus on the relationship before you focus on the property, okay? Because I've done deals nothing down because they just wanted the cash flow and they trusted me. I've done deals where I didn't make a payment for a year because the property was a train wreck. I said, listen, I got to put the money into the property first and then I will pay you. And it was the truth. And I bonded with them and we did it. Large deals, guys. So do not underestimate the power of that. But I want you to, you know, a couple more quick things. I'll take a couple questions. I'm running longer than normal. I apologize, guys. So you want to be very, very careful in evaluating market rents, especially if you're in a market that you're not totally convinced with. Like, let's say you find a 25 unit and it's got washer dryer hookups and you compare it to one that doesn't. That can be a $50 a month difference in rent. So let's take a look at what that means. Well, actually, I'll give you a better example. Let's say you're looking at a property and the owner pays all the utilities, or pays gas or water, or maybe they pay water and it has hookups. That's $100 difference, guys. Okay, let's see what $100 difference makes. 100 times 25 times 12 divided by let's say a 6 cap. That's a $500,000 difference in value, guys. $100 difference in rent. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, so I found this 25 unit. I'm going to go on RentBints or Zillow, apartments.com, and I'm going to see what rents are, right? Yes, but that's not nearly enough. You're going to pick up the phone and ideally you're going to go mystery shop the competition. But at the very least, you're going to pick up the phone and talk to property managers and competitors. You know, I've got a friend of a friend that literally lost out on an opportunity. He could have wholesaled for $1 million because he screwed this up. He found a property, it was 100 units, and the owner was paying all the utilities, and he compared it to one that wasn't. It was about $150 a month swing. And he could have wholesaled it and made $1 million. If I'd have been coaching him, of course, it wouldn't have happened. But, you know, it is what it is. So be very, very careful. All right. You guys probably, I don't know if you've had anyone on the show talk about syndications. Do you want me, you know, you need to talk to a syndication attorney, get up to speed on what you can and can't do. There's 2 primary types, 506B, 506C. 506B is the one I learned on, you know, and they had what was called the 3-touch rule. You couldn't tell somebody about a deal unless you talked to them 3 times. Now they say you have to have a substantive relationship, okay? And you absolutely cannot advertise. If you throw a 506B deal on Facebook, you are breaking the law. And I'm not going to say, ask me how I know on that one. I do not want the SEC knocking on my door, okay? So trust me, do not do that. I do 506C. 506C, you have 2 different kinds of investors according to the SEC. You have 3 really, but the ones we're interested in are sophisticated and accredited. Sophisticated means they're smart, but they're not brilliant, and they don't have a lot of money. Accredited means that, well, I shouldn't say that. That wasn't fair. They're smarter, but they don't have money. Accredited, they assume they're smarter because accredited, you're supposed to be making $200,000 a year by yourself or $300,000 a year married. Then you're, and with an expectation of it to continue. That's accredited. Or you have $1 million net worth and without your primary residence. That's accredited. Now, if you go with a 506C, you can shout it from the rooftops. I do all my deals 506C and I talk about it on the podcast, and they subscribe in days, because I'm about 50,000 years a week. So, and that's another thing. Let me mention real quickly. As you guys become operators, you're going to need to do what Joseph and Nico have done here and figure out how you're going to create reach. Be it, okay, I see a mastermind behind you, Hadar. Be it somewhere where you're creating reach with a mastermind, with a meetup group, with a podcast. I've helped probably 36 of my students create podcasts. I've helped my students create the largest meetup collaboration in the country. Or a YouTube channel or a LinkedIn page or some way to create reach. And it's very, very important that you figure that out. And you're going to want to do it in the way that you enjoy the most. If you enjoy writing, do a blog, maybe do LinkedIn. If you enjoy video, then go on Facebook. I've got the largest multifamily Facebook group in the world now. It's almost 36,000 people in there. So, again, you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. I never planned on any of this. And I was telling the guys when we first started, I started my podcast because I hate asking for money and I wanted to share my story, losing everything in 08. What was interesting is it was the houses that pulled me down. My multifamily did just fine. If I hadn't cross-collateralized my multifamily with packages of houses, I'd still own it. And so I wanted to share that story. If you're going to do long-term hold, you guys already got that memo. You want to do multifamily, not single family. It's just much more survivable and safer and more logistic and frankly more lucrative. So I started the podcast back then. I used to tell people I'll never sell you anything, and now I'm a freaking liar because I've got 500 students across the country and I do live events and I've got an incredible coaching program and everything else. But again, guys, if you really want to get a deep dive in this business, come spend 2 days with me. It's $97 freaking dollars. Okay. It is a duh. And make sure you use the code RODFRIEND. See, it's only $97. I promise you'll be glad you did. We go through all of this in great detail. But you want to learn syndications. Talk to a syndication attorney. Get up to speed. Don't be intimidated by it. So there's joint ventures and there's syndications. A joint venture, everyone that's involved has to play an active role. I bought millions of dollars of property in my 20s with partners, 50-50. They put up the money and they signed on the debt with me. And because they signed on the debt, it was a joint venture. Plus, if I spent more than $1,000 or whatever it was back then, I don't remember, it's 40 years ago, I had to get their permission. That's a joint venture because they were active. Now, if you take money from someone and you just give them a rate of return, by God, you better do a syndication. Otherwise, again, you'll have the SEC knocking on your door. But you just need to learn it. Don't be intimidated. It's a check. That's it. I've done them for as low as $8,000, and they can be as much as $20,000. You hire an attorney to do all the paperwork. You just dot the I's and cross the T's. That's it. And you don't break the law by advertising if you're doing a B. Okay? All right. You also want to get up to speed with a loan broker. I'm going to have a loan broker present for an hour at my event. And you want to learn agency debt. You want to learn the difference between non-recourse and recourse debt. Non-recourse meaning if they foreclose, they can't come after you. They can only take the property. Recourse, if the property doesn't sell for what you owe on it, they can come after you. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so that's recourse and non-recourse debt. And so you want to, you need to understand how that agency, it's called agency debt, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, how that works. Typically at least $1 million loan amount. You need to have a net worth equal to the loan amount, but that's the team. Okay. So you can find one high net worth individual and satisfy that requirement and the requirement for liquidity. You have to have 10% what's called post-closing liquidity, money in the bank after you close. And again, you can find one doctor and satisfy that requirement, or a dentist or whatever. And then you have to have some experience, okay? And if you don't have experience, you can find somebody that does and bring them in on the deal. And, we show you how to carve up the deal and how much if somebody brings the deal, how much if somebody raises the money, and how who's doing the asset management. We walk through that with you. It's too detailed to get into right now. But another thing is you want to be really good at due diligence, okay? You'll get at the event, you'll get this tool book. Even if you don't come to the event, if you go to my website, go to realestatewithrod.com, and it'll take you to my website because my name's hard to spell. Real Estate with Rod. This book's free on my website. This is like a due diligence checklist on steroids. It's not a fluffy, try to sell you some crap thing. It's got every possible question you could ever ask to buy a property, and it's free on there. But you get all that and a whole lot more if you come to the boot camp. But anyway, you want to make sure you've got a great checklist so you don't miss anything, because what's amazing about this business is it's primarily empirical. It's primarily numbers. If you get the numbers right and you ask the right questions, it's pretty freaking hard to make a mistake. It really is, a big mistake at least, okay? But let me say this to you. Let's say you spend 8 months finding that deal and you get it under contract and you're doing the backflips the whole way home to mama or papa, and you're so freaking excited, okay? At that very moment, you need to stop, take a deep breath, and put on the hat that says, why do I not want to do this deal? You're thinking, okay, that's easy. It's not. Why is it not? Because when you make a decision, it is human nature to look for ways to shore up, bolster, or substantiate that original decision you made. You can't do that here. If you do, you could subconsciously overlook something you shouldn't overlook. Okay, you guys get it? You really got to look at it like that, because I will tell you, sometimes the best deal is the one you don't do. We walk away from lots of deals. And in this business, there's more zeros, okay? And let's keep the seminars small, okay, guys? I'll talk about property management, then I'll land the plane. I'll take a question or a few if you guys want me to. But property management, I don't suggest you do your own property management out of the gate if you can avoid it, okay? Because I think we're heading into an incredibly lucrative opportunity time to buy distressed assets. I think you should be focused on raising money and finding deals, personally. But if you're, and when you hire a third-party property manager, make sure they manage the same size and asset class that your asset type, A, B, C, or D assets that you're buying, okay? Because if you give somebody a C asset and they're used to managing A, they will crash and burn. If you give somebody an A asset and they're used to managing C, they will crash and burn. If you give somebody a 20 unit that manages 100 unit properties, they will crash and burn. If you give somebody a 100 that manages 20, they will crash and burn. They have to manage similar property. Critical. That's critical. Secondly, make sure that if you buy a property under 70 units, you are likely to rely on their maintenance infrastructure, okay? So meaning if something wrong with your property, they're going to send out their maintenance guy or their sub. You want to make sure they're not upcharging their subs, and you want to make sure you dig in if they're having their own maintenance guys, because maintenance can be a real profit center for a management company. They'll hire some kid at 15 bucks an hour and bill them out at 100. So you want to dig into that, okay? So you don't get screwed. Very important. But if you buy over 70 units, typically you have your own maintenance man, you'll have your on-site staff, and it doesn't come into play. But if you're buying a smaller property, you're going to rely on third-party management. Check the maintenance. Lastly, make sure you check their online presence. Make sure they're not a digital dinosaur, okay? How do you find the best people? These brokers and property managers and bankers? Through referrals, okay? You may get a referral for the same property manager, but if you go on their website and you can't easily, on your phone, 70 to 80% is on phone now, you can't easily look at the properties that are for sale, or for rent rather, and apply for them online, do a virtual tour, see pictures, do not do business with them, because they've just eliminated most of the competition. I'm gonna land the plane there, dude. I could keep going back. Hopefully you guys got a little value. Those of you that are been around a while, hopefully you still got a little bit. Anyway, any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Rod. That was like, what, over an hour of nonstop value dropping.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. I love this stuff. That's why I do it. And again, come see me for 2 days. For God's sakes, it's $97. You can't go to Ruth Chris for that. So
Jesus Christ. That was amazing. All right, guys, let's.
And I'm not selling anything either. No sales pitch, okay? So it's a dub. Anyway, if you guys have a question, thank you, Craig. Appreciate the kind words, brother. If you guys have a question, feel free to ask it. I've got lots of resources on my website. Please listen to my podcast. If you don't, I think you'll enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. The only thing is I'm talk so fast I interrupt people. I've got like 1,100 reviews, and only time people get pissed is when I interrupt. And so I get some 1 stars in there. Mostly it's 4.5. I hate that. I'm not 5-star but I get too excited and I interrupt. So anyway, but we have a lot of fun, and you'll get a lot of value, because what I do is if somebody says something that I think the audience isn't going to get, I stop them and say, let me explain what he means by NOI or by cap rate or by, I explain it. I make it more educational. So, and I love it. So when you love what you do, work is play, right, guys?
Sure. Please, you could unmute yourself if you have a question and talk to Rod, friends.
Yeah, I can hang for a little longer. I'm juiced now. I won't be able to lay down, so I'll be like vibrating a little longer. So if you guys have anything, I'm happy to drill down on something if you want.
I wanted to thank you, Rod, for coming up and doing this for Joseph and everybody else, and Nico. Thank you guys for putting it on. I better go for my daily run. I was hanging around the office today before I can do my own exercise, so I'm going to go for a run. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadar, coming from New Zealand.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm in New Zealand, but I'm also an American citizen investing in the US, so I'm doing it remotely.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
So, Rod, can you just share a little bit about your predictions for 2021?
Yeah, actually, I got a YouTube video. I think it's at like 65,000 views. If you go to my YouTube channel, I go in depth this. I interviewed Harry Dent on my show, and he's talked doom and gloom for a long time. But let me say this: I saw him speak 20 some years ago in Vancouver, and had I listened to him, I wouldn't have lost $50 million, because I would have been out of residential real estate. He totally called it. He was within a year of calling the date as well. He says the crash is imminent. I mean, like any time. Now, if they throw that stimulus, if they approve that stimulus, which is probably likely with the election, it'll kick the can down the curb a little further. But just watch that YouTube video. I think it'll really give you insights, my friend, because I go in great detail there as to why I believe a crash is coming. Listen, my daughter loves to tell me, are you tired of being wrong? I'm wrong all the time. Who knows if I'm wrong? Tomorrow I'm going live on Facebook to talk about how to keep tenants through a crisis. People are going to be like, what are you talking about? It's a hot market right now. Well, I don't think it's going to be. And so, again, if I'm wrong, great. If I'm not, then you haven't lost anything. But I would say this to you. If you're in the stock market, I think you are playing with a loaded gun. Seriously. Okay. Number one. 2, if you have the ability to get in cash, because cash is king. Now, it doesn't have to be your cash. The ability to raise cash even, relationships with potential investors, for example, and pre-framing them to not be afraid when the blood's running in the streets. Because the media, oh my God, real estate's going to be down for 10 years and it's going to be horrible and blah, 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 and it'll never come back. And so there'll be fear, pervasive fear, like they're so good at doing. So, yeah, but if you pre-frame them to say, hey, when that's happening, that's when we pounce. I'm going to tell you, exponential opportunities. You buy enough assets at 30 cents on the dollar, you'll be on the back of your yacht before too long. Okay, so indicators. Well, what if you listen to that Napoleon, the indicator? What according to Harry Dent, who's smarter than I am. I mean, he was Harvard like cum laude. He said the stock market crash will be the first sign. Yeah. So, will there be short sale opportunities? Absolutely. The foreclosure numbers are staggering right now. The person that bought my business, what they do is they use the law to stop a foreclosure, and then they modify the loans for people, and it's really good work. It's not like a scam thing. I mean, we helped thousands of families over the last few years before I sold the business, and the numbers of foreclosures that are stacked right now are staggering. Okay, so. And again, I'm not an expert at that, guys. I'm not going to try to be. It just feels like it's going to happen to me. So many people are getting laid off. I read Business Week. I read, Forbes. I read Fortune. I watch the business news all the time. And, you start to getting a little bit of an intuition. And who knows? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Again, don't fear it, guys. Don't fear it. Be ready for it so you can capitalize on it if it does happen. That's all. Anybody else?
Yeah, Rod, I have one question. First of all, I want to thank you. And I've been to your event in Atlanta maybe 2 years ago, and it was mind-blowing. Yes, I was. And actually, we worked out at a gym next to each other, and we talked for a few minutes. So
did we? Oh, forgive me.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't remember.
No, but it was.
But
I couldn't thank you enough. It was.
so you enjoyed the event? Oh, thank you.
It was fantastic. Highly recommended. Thank you so much. So there's a lot of discussion if to continue investing right now or to wait, like you said, maybe. What do you recommend? You recommend just
good question. Real good question. I've got a deal under contract right now, but I mean, we're very, very picky and we're stress testing the heck out of it. We won't do a deal unless we can cash flow day one at 25% vacant. And then our model is we refinance in 5 years and pull the investors' money out, and we have to cash flow at 35% vacant then. And we won't buy a deal unless those two numbers are happening. And then huge operating reserves. We have to be able to raise enough money and still be able to show double-digit returns on cash on, at least a 10% cash on cash annualized over the 5 years, and then ideally somewhere in the 18 to 20% IRR over the 5 years as well, at the end of the 5 years. But our model, we really don't sell. We look to refinance, get our investors their money back, and just stay in the deal. But no, we're buying. I bought a 280 unit in Cincinnati last 6 weeks ago. We bought one in Northeast Atlanta, 116 units, gorgeous property, about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago. But and this deal in Augusta, it's only 80 units. It was such a screaming deal, we couldn't pass it. But listen, we're looking at tons of them right now to find deals. So be even more conservative than normal would be what I would tell you, Doran, is listen, there are going to be deals out there, but you really got to hunt for them. But it's a great time to become really good at this by evaluating tons of them and building those broker relationships, and they'll take you seriously once, things tighten up and things aren't moving. And so anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Rod.
Hey.
This is Mehdi. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of your podcast, and I'm going actually to your event in October.
Wonderful.
I have 2 questions. I already own several properties, and some of them have some equity in them. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a good time to refinance?
If you're asking me what would I do, that's a very subjective question. Okay, just know that. And if I'm wrong, I don't want you calling me and saying, "Hey, stupid, you told me to refinance, and now the market didn't crash." But I'm going to tell you, if I were in your shoes and you could get into cash, I would do it now. Okay. As much cash as you can. If you've got high equity properties, pull the cash out either by refinancing or selling. Listen to my interview with Harry Dent. It's very sobering.
I listened to it. Yeah, that was a very good one.
Yeah.
And he's pretty clear on the prospects of what's going on in the future. And
he's the COVID is kind of like the catalyst, but he's got all these metrics and cycles that he tracks. And he said they've all confluenced like right now that this thing should be happening right now. Again, maybe he's wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I really don't.
Yeah. And the other question I had for you is to scale up, obviously, and buy bigger multifamilies. The last one I purchased was 15 units, but I would love to get something more substantial. Mm-hmm. But that takes time, and I'm building processes to be successful in identifying the deal.
Well, okay, respectfully, can I smack you? That when you say it takes time, it's a story. Okay, it takes the same amount of time to buy a 50 unit as it does to buy a 100 unit or 200 unit or 400 unit. Respectfully, from my heart, my friend, I just want to tell you, don't be careful what you say to yourself, because your mind believes you. Okay, and so be very, very careful. I'm guilty of that every day. So just please know I'm not picking on you, my friend.
No, absolutely, and I welcome very much the feedback. Thank you so much. It's true, and I'm trying to train my brain on.
All right. Yeah, listen, it's the same amount of work, man. It might even be easier to do a larger deal because you bring in, more sophisticated players to partner with you, and so please don't limit yourself that way.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, I asked a question on my podcast. It's a common question, I'm sure, by lots of podcasts. I don't really listen to my competitors, but what if you? I just saw a raccoon walk by my yard. I've got my monitors right here with my, anyway. What would you do if you know, what would you tell your 18-year-old self with what you know now? And it's always go bigger, go faster, you know. So just, these are
No,
some
absolutely.
players in the world. Anyway, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so but the time it takes, like you mentioned, like you maybe look at 100 deals and you'll find one if you're lucky. So it takes a certain time.
Flipping to raise money, fine. It's a great model. But it's a journey, you know, so just, you know, if you're doing it because you need cash, fine. If that's your core job, your you know, what your equivalent of a W-2 to raise money, fine. But if you've got other income and you're flipping just to flip, I think it's a waste of your time. I would focus on multifamily for sure. You have to flip, you know. I think of 3 properties we bought in the last 18 months that'll have $8 million or $10 million increases in value. So, you know, that's my answer. It may not be what you wanted to hear, but there's my answer.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for being direct about it. But yeah, you have a good point.
I'm a little bit transparent to a fault. I don't have much of a filter. Forgive me.
No, I appreciate it very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's my pleasure and honor to spend some time with you guys. I hope I see some of you at my boot camp. If not, go crush it. And it was my pleasure. Take care, guys. All right. See you later. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yosef.
Rod.
Nico. Okay. Hey,
Thank you
Yosef,
so much.
if you could stay on for a second, I'd like to talk to you. Are you gonna stay on anyway with the group?
Yeah, I will stay.
Oh, you'll stay with me, or the group stays on?
You.
Okay, thank you.
And for everybody else, guys, thank you so much. You're going to be getting an email with all this information packed into it. Hopefully you sign up for this boot camp. You will check out the YouTube videos. We're going to send all the information that he spoke about along with the replay for this video. So thank you all so much. And Rod, that energy was freaking amazing and inspiring. I thank you so much, man. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
Thank you,
Can
everyone.
you can stay on too, Nico. I just wanted to ask you guys something real quick. Well, you have still a lot of people on.
Wow.
I want to talk to you guys privately if I could. So.
Yeah, I'll remove people.
Okay. I must have bored them. They fell asleep.
There was no chance to get bored. You were on fire, like nonstop.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
One last.
All right.
No, Ellen's here.
I tried to remove. It's not working. I don't know.
All right. Well, I really do want it to be private. I actually like the recording to turn off too, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Do you want me to? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right.
We can
Yeah,
turn off